best time to go into a deal is when you have another deal available, right? Like that's not the only deal in town. Most buildings we wind up doing, we're not in any rush, so it doesn't matter to me.
Are you looking for a way to drive growth, sales, communication, and retention in your academy? Kovar Systems 6-month Program Director course is designed to help members of your team thrive in the important role of Program Director. With step-by-step training, we will cover a wide range of topics, including prospect follow-up, overcoming objection, and securing enrollments. Our program will teach your team members to effectively communicate the values and benefits of martial arts, which can be a game changer in securing more enrollments at your academy. Our next 6-month course starts on this date. So don't wait and visit our site, www.kovarsystems.com, to get your team enrolled in the upcoming course. Again, that's www.kovarsystems.com. Enroll now and get ready to see some real results in your business.
Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast, the ultimate resource for ambitious, hardworking school owners that want to get their business and their life to the next level. My name is Dave Kovar. I'm a lifetime martial artist, business owner, speaker, and author. My goal is to empower listeners with the knowledge and the tools they need to break through barriers and really get their business and their life to the next level. Thanks for watching and enjoy. Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kovar, and with me today is a good friend of mine, Solomon Brenner. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic. I love your intro, sir. I love that intro voice.
It's my radio voice, right, or something. Well, Solomon and I, Master Brenner, we're going to be pretty casual here today. Have known each other for quite a while. You've been a fixture in the industry forever. You have a chain of schools in the basically Philadelphia area. You have like 32 locations, or is it up since I last talked to you?
I would say 32. There's probably a couple like rec centers
Okay,
that are
incredible,
trying to become full-time.
incredible, and it's really been amazing to see your progress. And I know we've been probably see each other pretty regular. I've been out to your school a lot, probably over the last decade. Is that probably been about 10 years since my first visit, I would say. Does that sound
10
about right?
years and 2 to 4 times. I always brag that I think other than your own schools, you visit us more than anybody, I would
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Besides our schools and Nancy Walzog's, I've been to your place more than anywhere else on the planet. Absolutely. Yep. And love going. I love your energy. I love what you're doing there. And it's really cool to see how it's evolved just in the 10 years since I've known you. Like when I first started going out there, you had a lot of schools. You had 7 or 8 locations. And guys, when I'm talking about schools, a lot of times someone might consider they're teaching at the YMCA on Friday night. That's a school. And they're teaching at the local preschool on Saturdays. That's a school. We're talking about like commercial facilities that where you pay rent and all that kind of stuff that goes along with that. So what I'd like to do is, first off, let's just kind of back up a whole lot and tell me a little bit about your early martial arts journey. What got you started and what kind of led you into teaching?
Well, probably like all people that are my age, during the original Karate Kid movie and other movies like
Thank you,
Bloodsport.
Karate Kid.
Oh my goodness. Karate Kid, Bloodsport, Best of the Best, No Retreat. I don't know if you remember No Retreat, No Surrender.
Of course.
Uh, all those movies, I was like so amazed. And a lot of people thought I did it because I was vertically challenged. I was obviously always like in front of the line in class. But I never really felt that way. Like I never felt like I had to defend myself. I just thought it was like so cool. And I think I wanted to be the hero. So anyway, all those movies probably combined. I always say Karate Kid, but it's probably all of them. I would watch them and just be amazed and think, oh my God, that is so awesome. I want to do it. So when I was 14, I begged and begged and begged. I come from a pretty large family where, I don't think we wanted for anything, but I also don't think, we lived in some lap of luxury. Like it was like, like I went to a fine school, lived in a fine neighborhood, I guess. But like, the idea of, most of my clothes came from like flea markets. If you don't know, I have 5 sisters, 3 brothers. My dad worked for the city of Philadelphia his whole life, and provided great. Like I have no issues whatsoever. But like, extracurricular activities were also like, are you out of your mind?
Right.
Uh,
9 kids working for the city. He's doing his best to put food on the table, and I got you. I got you.
he always worked 2 or 3 jobs too, which was the other issue. Like, how do you get anywhere when he's working legitimately 12 hours a day minimum? Um, and my mom has, all these other kids to corral around. So anyway, I was lucky when I was 14 to finally start karate, and I think it's the same story that most people that I know that have been training for as long as I have, like fell in love immediately, took every class possible, during the summer they'd have their 12 o'clock class and I would go to that. Then I'd hang out and spar with the instructors if they let me. Like I would, and back then it was all adults, right? It was like
Right.
I was like the little pet of the adult men. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
was the mascot at our school as well. I was the only kid. I was like, yeah, there's a bunch of tough guys, but I didn't get abused because I was too little. It's like, I was too, there was no feather in the cap for someone that could take me out, because I was such a
yeah,
young
but
kid.
they also I felt like mentored me too. Like
Yeah,
all the
sure.
guys at the karate school helped me learn how to drive. When I would have girl questions, they'd pull me over and be like, "Son, let me give you some advice." And I think it was all good advice. Like,
Yeah.
they were all trying to help. I really feel like it was so wonderful for me to have all of those adults. Um, but I think there was a beginning of a kids class, but I was 14, so like I think I started in the kids class a little bit, but I would literally take like by the time I was like a blue belt, I would take like the beginner kids class, I take the advanced kids class, then they'd let me take the beginner adult class, then eventually I took like I would take in all the classes every night. And if I wanted to go out with my friends, they would have to pick me up after karate class, which they would
Mhm.
make fun of me, but I'd be like, no, but it's so awesome. But yeah, anyway, I like totally was 100% in love with it, and
So,
still am.
so you've got your family is like generally speaking, education was an important part of your family's, I'm assuming, right? And so you were
Sort of.
clearly, pushed to go towards college, which you did. So tell us about that experience. What did you do? What did you degree in?
My degree is in marketing from St. Joe's University, and I do not think most of my family went to college, but I would say we weren't pushed to do it at all. My dad's a pretty educated guy; he's a chemist, but my mom always thought you could do equally as well if you would just go right to work and you were a hustler and you were smart and followed along. Like she always thought the 4 years you were also missing a gap of working 4 years.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she always thought maybe don't. I part of me thinks some of us went to college because she told us not to.
Interesting.
Um, she was very here. So this is for anybody who has children. Her whole philosophy was you had to pump children full of information between birth and like 3 to 5 years old, like somewhere between there. And once they got to five, you're done. Like whatever
Oh,
happens, happens. Their brain is already developed. And her goal was, which I thought, later on as an adult, I was like, oh, that's pretty fascinating, that they can do well in school without like, being too stressed about it.
right.
So like, if I came home with B's, there was never a word said to me.
Right.
Like nobody, it wasn't like, oh, I think you can get an A. It was like, oh yeah, you're doing
It's
B's, you got some friends. Great job. Go to karate. Like
You know
whatever.
what? It's so funny that you say that because my folks were the same way. And I remember my dad telling me one time, he said, "Son, you don't have to get A's. I don't care if you get A's or not. B's are fine." Now, what he meant to say is, "Try your hardest, and I'll love you anyway." Guess what I
Yeah,
heard though? Guess what I heard?
B's are fine.
B's are fine. I don't even have to work hard to get B's. So I got B's because my dad was good with it. Like I remember literally going, I don't need to do that. B's are fine with my folks. And so I tried to maybe encourage my kids a little bit more, but with that said, man, how many people stress over that stuff when it's really being social and there's so much emphasis put on test scores that we know that can be counterproductive. So okay, so now you go to school. When did you decide, all right, man, it's what I'm gonna do for a living? To take us through that experience to where you became a full-time martial artist.
So I started training when I'm 14. By the time I'm 16, I'm the enrollment director at our school. And I'm loving it. And I've always been like, so when I was a child, we didn't watch what I wanted to watch on TV. We would watch whatever my mother was watching on TV. So I grew up on such shows as at 3 p.m. with General Hospital. And I grew up with Dallas and Dynasty and Falcon Crest. It wasn't like anyway, so that's all the shows I watched. And they're all like businessy, shows. And I just always liked that part of it. So at the karate school, that's kind of who I was at age like 16 and on, like the karate school that I worked at. Like by 17, I was pretty much like helping teach the other enrollment directors how to do it because I was all about like memorize the script. And there were some of the adult men were also like one of them specifically was like this very successful sales guy. And every time I had an objection, I would just go to him and say, "This is what they said. What should I say?" And he would give me some real crafty line, like super slick, and I would go say that line. And I think because I was a kid, like I didn't have any like shame or embarrassment.
Right.
Like I didn't care what
Right.
I said.
Right.
Whatever words you tell me to say, I'll go say those words. Um, so anyway, so I started doing that. And when I guess I was in college, like at 19, I met, my business partner, Jacqueline, and we were hanging
Absolutely.
out all the time. And I wanted to hang out some more with her. And I thought, oh, I like business. I like karate. And she was training and her children were training. And I was like, hey, we should do this together. We should start our own school. And she went, okay. That was legitimately it. And then the way we found our location, we like did a strong demographic search. We did none of that. We literally went like, I live here, you live here, I go to school here on a map, and we went like this, and what's in the middle, that's where we opened. We knew
That's
nothing
funny.
about it. And we just happened to get lucky. Like it happened to be a good area.
Well, that's how we all open our first schools, right? We didn't even think about that stuff because we're not smart enough to figure out that's important. There's a location over there, an empty, it's got a for lease sign on it. Yeah, I mean that's what I did the first 3 or 4 locations I had. That was how I picked it.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we did that. I just told this story like I think new schools that open now, I definitely think it's difficult, but I feel I almost like they're so lucky. We had carpet, like, it was carpet burns
Yep.
every day, all the
Sure.
time. There was no the padding was hair and jute like that red, I'm sure it was the same thing. Like there was nothing, we would do flyers. Jacqueline worked as a waitress. She had like a realtor's license, never really used it, but she worked as a waitress at nighttime. And then like we'd go do flyers at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like I distinctly remember like people's motion sensor lights would go on as we were putting like flyers in their mailbox. And then like they'd come to the door and I'd be like, oh my God, it was like 1:30 in the morning, not an exaggeration. But that's the only time we could do it. And there were we went through, I had anxiety attacks. There was a lot of, different things that happened. And I think it was super tough for us, but thank goodness we got through it.
Yeah. So then you were successful on location and then you started expanding, but kind of give us kind of a high 10,000 foot level of, you had expanded, then you ran into some challenges and you had to kind of backpedal a little bit and regroup. Kind of bring us through that.
Absolutely. So we start growing. We knew pretty quickly, like the only way to really make a giant impact on more communities, but also make more money was through leverage, right? You need more people doing more things. So we figured that out pretty quickly. And me, like I'm constantly studying, constantly asking people for help. And so we started opening schools, and it was like we could do no wrong. We'd open a school, they'd be at 100 students in 6 months. That was kind of our model. They'd be at 150 or 200 within a year, year and a half max. Everybody was doing great. And the belief that I had then that I have the opposite of now, I didn't like, if they were, and they were all our students, like every single one was our student back then, and I still struggle with this now. I truly see the best in everyone. I almost ignore all their faults, and I'm like, but they're so nice, but they're so good, but they helped me with this, and I'm so like, and like Miss Jackie will be like, yeah, but anyway, we wound up and because of that, we really believed that it was the systems that ran the whole show, and it wasn't the person. Like it was pretty much like I said, if you say the words that I tell you to say that we know work, you're gonna be great, and it was true. It did work except for when the person was of poor character, like there's no way around, you can't make a good deal with a bad person kind of thing.
Yep.
And we had one group of people that wanted to open a school. Remember, we are flying high. Like we have probably like 7 or 8 locations. They're all, $30,000 a month back then was a pretty like that was to me, that was like the gold standard.
Got it.
They're all either there or they're approaching that. It's like going great. Everybody's making more money they've ever made before. We're helping all these people. Everybody loves us. And then somebody comes, they want to open a school. We don't like them. We say no, thank you. The person that like brought them to us said, "Hey, you don't understand, sir. I've known them for a long time. They're a good person." We say no again. They came to us again and said, "You gotta let them in. They want to do this. They're gonna be so good for the organization." And I was like, "Well, I don't know everything. And if he believes in them, and I am friends with him, you know what? It's he vouched for them. Let them on in." And that was like the beginning of the end of that era of our growth. We grew to we in that time period, we probably grew to I think 20 or 21 schools. We still grew pretty fast with them, but it was just like crack after crack after crack that we would just like paper over with. Well, we're doing good. Well, we're doing well. We're doing well. And it just became, more and more lies and more challenges. And then we went through a giant lawsuit. Um, I don't want to say it was our fault for the lawsuit, but we certainly believed in the what the lawyers, like the lawyer would say every time, like, oh, you're gonna crush them, you're gonna crush them, you're gonna crush them, and then like we'd lose something. And then it was like, you're gonna crush them, you're gonna crush them, then it would go against us. Like we wound up not losing the whole case at all. We wound up winning, but like it just took like I think 18 months
Yeah, and a
of
lot of
like
money
torture.
and a lot of stress and all the things that go along with it.
I cried at nighttime. Like I literally laid in my bed and cried. Like I was like my life was like I wanted to like stop running schools. Like I was like, all right, I'm college educated. I can go work somewhere in business. Like I don't need this. Um, I was like, this is
Wow.
just completely silly. This is just doesn't make any sense for me anymore.
So you came out the other end, you downsized. How many schools when you kind of started with your fresh start? How many locations did you have?
I think 11.
Okay. Okay.
And it was truly, and I'm not just saying this to make myself feel better, it was truly all the pain in the butt schools were just gone. But it was still hurtful. A lot of them were friends. Like they were like, friends like we were going out with them like every other weekend for years.
Right.
Like
Right.
this, like now they won't accept my phone call unless there are attorneys in the room. And I'm like, this is like, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like we can't just talk.
Right. Right.
So complete disaster. And then we start over, and then we decide we're never opening again. Like we have our core, we're fine. We don't want to do. We're good. But the thing is, we still have the machine running of, people like like the vision casting and like all the stuff that we do, and we were still developing instructors. And then like the first group I remember coming to us, they were like, "Hey, we want to open a school," and I was like, "Oh, we don't do that anymore." And they're like, "But we really want to." And I just told them the whole story. I was like, "Yeah, I'm not getting involved again. I'm done." And they were like, but we're not those people. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. But and anyway, we just said no a couple times. And then Jack and I had like a heart to heart about like, okay, well, maybe we should use this as a learning experience. And, we would start having better conversations in the beginning, like, hey, if there's ever trouble and you don't like it, come talk to me.
Got it.
Not an issue at all.
Got it.
And in that period of time, we had one guy over the last probably like 15 or 18 years, we had one guy come to us and say, like, hey, this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to do this with you guys anymore. I want to run my own ship. I was like, yeah, not a problem at all. I said, just, I said, all I'm asking for you to, and by the way, he was with us for 10 years. His
Okay.
license was up anyway.
Right.
Um, Good friend. I said, not an issue at all. Just show me that Action Karate is not on any of your stuff. Like all your signs are changed, all the Google stuff, your Facebook, all the logos in your school. Just show me it's all changed and it's over. And he spent like a couple months, getting it all cleaned up. And, just like to me, I'm really proud of this. When Miss Jackie earned one of her new ranks, like he mailed her a new belt. Like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
really proud of you. I wanted to get you a gift. I
Perfect.
thought during COVID, I used to call him and be like, hey, is there anything we could do for you guys?
Yeah, man, it's always better to have friends than enemies, man. So in the last few years, you've expanded dramatically and you've been on a mission. This has been very intentional. And you and I talk frequently. So I kind of, I've seen, how I know how you think and what you do, but well, for the most part, that is. And, really, you do so much so well. So one of the things that you're so good at is you take action. You don't like wait around to overthink things at all. You know what I mean? It's like if you think it's a good idea, you certainly put some research into it, but then you go for it, right? Which has always been an impressive thing. But what I'm curious about is the thought process behind going from, let's say, 11 schools to 32 in what, 7 years or something like that. What are you trying to do? What's your goal with this?
Well, the advice that we've always tried to follow is we only open with, it's not whether I want to grow, it's whether or not somebody around me wants to grow, right?
Okay.
Like, so we just have to constantly present opportunities for other people. And one of the models that we use is like a teaching hospital. Like a teaching hospital is learn one, do one, teach one. And we try to do all of our schools the same way. Like, I don't want an instructor teaching class unless there's somebody standing next to him learning how to teach class, or an enrollment director should not be talking to anybody unless there's somebody standing next to them learning how to do it. And that accomplishes a lot. Like one of the things that my biggest fears is as we grow, we get thinner, right? Like, and then there's a school that's, 30 miles away that needs an instructor. How am I going to help them? I don't know anybody there.
Yep. Yep.
So, we are truly like an instructor training center, not like one of our schools. They all are instructor training centers. It's, maybe different levels, but they're all constantly. So our bench strength is pretty phenomenal. And we've been really fortunate that when somebody wants to go off on maternity leave or somebody, hurts themselves, for the most part so far, knock on wood, it's really not an issue. Like literally, like somebody will call us and be like, "Oh, I need to take off for 3 months or whatever." And we're like, "Okay, who's gonna do what you do?" They name somebody. I'm like, "Are they good?" "Oh, they're awesome. I've been training them for 2 years." I mean, it's your thing, right? I mean, one of the things that we got a lot from you, by the way. So you're giving me all the credit right now, but you've been an instrumental part of a lot of it with Ascend. Is I'll give you one thing about Ascend, but I need an instructor tomorrow. There's nothing I can do. I need an instructor tomorrow. In a year from now, we can do a lot.
Yep.
But we always
Yep.
assume that. We always assume aliens are gonna aliens are going to abduct somebody and who's going to replace them. And, if, one of the things we always talk about it, I can't imagine, let's say somebody gets sick, an instructor. So now what happens? Like they're sick, they have to go take care of themselves, and their business is failing at the same time. That's like a disaster. But
Yep.
if they can be home, take care of themselves, and they have other people running their business, that's like awesome, right? So like we're in constant preparation for the alien abduction. And what I was going to say earlier is I do without a doubt completely ignore any accomplishment and just go for the next. And you really helped me. Like one day, I don't know if you remember, but you said something along the lines. You were like, "Oh, how's it going?" I was like, "Oh, it's fine. Like, I just wish we were growing faster." And you were like, "Well, the last time, you were like, like 2 years ago, you had five less schools, right?" And I was like I never even thought about it like that. I'm
Right.
just thinking about the next one. Like I'm just thinking about
Right.
who we're
Right.
helping next. So it was, anyways, wonder when you said that, I was like, "Oh, I guess you're right."
So what are you doing? Like clearly, you've done an amazing job. You're a master delegator. Your enthusiasm is contagious. And I know when I go, it's been fun to watch. Like I'll show up and I'll work with your team when I go out there, and it's amazing to see how this team is growing. I think last time there was like 55 people on the floor in the morning. These are full-time instructors. It was really impressive. But what are you doing to kind of uh, pace yourself? In other words, you must work 16 hours a day every day, right? I knew
Now,
that answer. I was feeding you that. I was a softball man. So
I,
you have a pretty good schedule as well. Is that fair to say?
I would say yes. And the real answer to it is the delegating, but not even delegating. I think it's giving opportunity to people that want it, you know, uh, and it's just surrounding yourself with everybody says they'll do this, but they don't really do it because their ego doesn't let them. They need to surround themselves with truly better people than themselves. So if you look at who I'm surrounded by, like you look at our team, it's outrageous. Let's say you start with Miss Jackie, right? My partner. She could be anything anywhere. Sensei Michael, legitimately Ivy League, they paid him to go. Like he could do anything on the planet. We're so lucky. Mr. McCreary, all of them. Like they're all could be doing anything. And karate for so long has been about the ego of the head instructor. And they're so afraid to ask for help, and they're so afraid that they'll all say they want to surround themselves with better people better than themselves, but they really don't. And there's also like this whole like I think again, I'm not sure if you told me. I think might have told me this quote like, "Hey guys, if we all work hard enough, I'm going
Yeah.
to be able to buy that big house up there."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
Like
yeah,
that's
it's
not who
like
we are at all.
yeah, no, totally. It's very apparent of that. Well, so something we haven't talked yet about, part of your formula is, and go into as much or little detail as you want, but these locations, one of your kind of long-term personal strategies is so you can make sure to control the rent for your schools, but you own a lot of your buildings. Is that fair to say?
We have probably about half.
Yeah. And so, how do you do that, man? Because I'm quoting somebody that you've heard this. There's no way in my area you can't buy any buildings. They're too expensive. They're none around.
I would say that can't be, the rent always has to somehow. I mean, I don't know about all areas. Like I don't know, like LA and New York City, maybe this might not be exactly the case. But like at the end of the day, there has to be some pocket of the rent and the mortgage are similar, or else why would the person buy it? Like nobody's buying a building to rent it to you to not, the rent has to be more than the mortgage or at least
Right.
close.
Right.
Why would anybody buy it in other ways?
Yep.
That's the only way.
Yep.
So for us, we just think, okay, well, we'll take that landlord out of the picture. And instead of paying the landlord for, X number of years, we'll just pay ourselves. It's not as glorious, I would say, as some people would like make it think like, oh, you own all these buildings. That's so great. Long term, 100% it's great. Like it'll be fantastic at some day, sometime. But in the beginning, like you're constantly putting out, big deposits. It's always 20%, I know you can do SBA 10%. I got all that. But for us, we do 20% down. It's very conventional. So we're always putting money out and we pretty much charge rent like it's a 15-year mortgage. Um, so the karate school is getting a great deal. Their rent almost never goes up. They're responsible for all maintenance of the building, so we don't have to deal with that. But it's not like we're making money hand over fist doing it.
Right.
We're building an annuity, but it's great, right? So you have like all these buildings now So in 15 years from now, all these buildings are paid off. Of course, that's great. But it's also great for, we need to make it a win-win for everybody.
And
I
that's
think
what
we
you've
do a good
done.
job.
That's what you've done really well, which is interesting. Is so kind of the model is that you're getting people into you're buying the building, which is great for you in the long term. Well, in the short term, you're having to come out of pocket for money, and you most of the time you have a net zero positive cash flow, right? Like you're breaking even,
Yes.
but you're also able to get people into a school with extremely reasonable rent, which helps them to be successful, and therefore, everybody wins from that.
What do you think the average rent is in the country right now? Like if you had to
Uh,
guess,
Oh
maybe.
man, it's a lot more than what I think you're paying a lot of places. And I wanted to, but I would say in like metropolitan areas, like for us in California, and we think of it differently. We do like a square foot per month. You guys do it for annually. But if we've got a school that's 2,500 square feet, most of our rents are probably about 7 or 8 grand. Yes, some of them higher than that.
We had one school that was paying 8 grand as rent, and we just bought the building. The building was somewhat of a, we didn't do a good job with I'll just tell you this because so people can look out for it. I might have already shared this with you. Bought it from this little old lady. She's in her 70s, super nice. There's never property for sale in this area. We've been looking for 5 years. Finally, something comes up, probably overpriced, but we're paying $8,000 a month somewhere else. She shows me all these like receipts of the roof always being coated. When we After we bought the building and we started seeing leaks, we looked up there. She had buckets attached above the ceiling tiles, catching the water so we wouldn't see it. And the roof, I think was like 80 grand on top of the. I think we overpaid for the price a little bit.
Oh,
It's just like a
Brenner.
disaster.
Well, so one thing I wanted to touch on one other thing when it comes to real estate is that you're really good at walking away if the deal isn't right, right? So you don't let your emotion take control of you. Like it's not, I gotta have that building. I'll pay more for it. You've been really good about, my brother used to call it the White Sox theory, like no emotion, like as much emotion as you would if you're buying White Sox. Is that good? Could you speak to that?
Well, you taught me without a doubt, like the best time to go into a deal is when you have another deal available, right? Like that's not the only deal in town. Most buildings we wind up doing, we're not in any rush, so it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, like I have a number in my head that I think it's worth, or I think that like the price school can afford that would make sense for them, and we just can't go above that number. And I don't think I truly walk away. I think what I do is I revisit it every quarter and like, hey, has anything changed? And a lot of times I'll have like the owner's cell phone number or something, and I'll be like, check it in, see if anything changed. And also being like super creative, like on the financing,
Okay.
um, to try and make it. I try to make it a win-win for everybody. But just because somebody's asking a large amount doesn't, they should be somewhat embarrassed that they're asking such a funny number. Like
Right. So in
sometimes
other
I'll say to
words,
somebody, explain to me how you like. They'll be like, well, that's what they want, and I'll be like, okay, explain to me how you got to that number. Like what in the world makes sense there? And they'll be
and
like, it doesn't matter. It's what I want. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, me too.
yeah, so and what you're really good at with this is presenting this in a way that, that doesn't close doors. In other words, you've been really good about like not being a jerk about it. So eventually people, if they like you, they're more likely to do business with you.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty friendly and I'm always open. If we're kind of close or even not close, I'll always ask like, hey, if I'm talking to the broker, would you mind if you introduce me to the owner and maybe we can go out to eat and like, we can like go over the numbers together and see if we can come to terms. And if it's a smart broker, it's not like I'm trying to go around the broker. They'll still get paid. It doesn't matter, it doesn't
Right.
change them. Sometimes they feel like, no, no, I have to do it. But a lot of times they'll let me go ahead and chat with the owner, go out to lunch, go out for coffee and I am super nice. I'm like, hey, if you can get that number, of course, I hope you do get it. Congratulations. But if you want to sell it today, here's what. And sometimes it's just like telling them, like, yeah, it might be worth what you're saying to someone, but a karate school cannot afford that. Like that's, you can sell it to, a drugstore, maybe, but not us. So if you want to sell it today, this is what we can do. And I'm sorry, that's what it is.
And at the end of the day, if they say no, you're good with that. You move on to the next one. That's the key. I think the key that people have to understand any type of negotiation is the person that wins the negotiation. And we always want to be a win-win, right? I mean, it's good when the other person's happy, but the person that does well from their standpoint in a negotiation is the person that has the ability to walk away,
Oh,
right?
without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yep, good. Well, hey man, one last question. What advice would you give a school owner out there that's struggling, that's just kind of having a hard time? Maybe they've been in business a long time and they've never recovered from COVID. Of course, you and I have our schools thrived, but and we're around people that are doing well, but there's a lot of people that maybe aren't, they're not aware of that. But so what would you, someone's listening, the school is struggling, give me a couple of tidbits of advice for them.
I mean, what you just said is exactly it. I mean, they have to surround themselves with smart people. During COVID, which was by far the scariest thing that I've gone through, besides maybe the lawsuit, how often did we talk?
Oh, all the time, all the time.
You talk to everybody else too. Like, it was kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yep,
But you were
yep.
talking. I also don't talk to people that I think are worse off than me. So like you have to surround, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. I try to take that to heart and try to really talk. I'm not calling someone who's worse than me. I'm only going to call somebody who I think has some piece of it. It doesn't have to be everything better than me.
Right,
Just like I'm taking marriage advice from somebody whose marriage is crumbling.
right,
Like I want to
right.
take advice from me. Oh, I really respect the relationship. I think it's awesome. Let's find out what they're doing.
Yep,
So I think
yep.
surrounding yourself, and certainly, with all of the different masterminds that you guys have, and I know you're going to be embarrassed and tell me I don't have to do this, but truly, it's been a great thing for us. Like you have to just be around the right people, and it's not the business is not the and the business is not the problem. The person's the problem. And I just heard Chris Rodriguez say she came to visit us, which was so grateful and she was so nice. And she summed it up. She said, "You can't outgrow yourself. Like your business will never outgrow your own ability. So the only way to really grow is to grow yourself. But you really have to like decide to do that. And it's a lot harder, I think, than everybody says they do it. But my question would be, okay, today what podcast did you listen to? What did you read today? Who did you talk to today? What strategy did you come up with today? Or what did you implement today that actually moved the needle forward? What group are you part of today? Like everybody says they do it, but I am sure like, you visit them 2 years later, they're just doing the same thing over and over again. They have to make a decision.
Well, if
And
I
do
was to sum it up, what you're really good at is a Shoshin, beginner's mind. You've been doing this a long time. You have a lot of knowledge, and you're always helpful if someone wants your input. You're happy to give it, freely share, but you're always kind of, eyes open, looking for some way to improve, and then implementing on it. And that's a rare skill, and I think it's working well, and it's been great to see your organization grow. And I'm happy to be a part of that to the extent that I am. And I wish you the best of success going forward.
wait. I just want to say one thing because I think
Okay.
you talked about having that like mindset a few years ago. I think I lost it. I called Miss Jackie and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm really screwing up here." And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Do you remember when we first opened? Like I was like the little kid in all the business rooms. I'd be running up there, everybody and getting advice." I was like, "Now I feel like I'm this new position where like I'm giving advice and I really enjoy it, but we're never going to grow that way. I've got to walk into the room finding stuff, not, just I'm happy to give." But I feel like my ego was like taking over and like, I want to spout what I think is the right thing to
Right,
do,
right.
which
Sure,
I get
sure.
to do now. But I think, again, like how do people grow? I think you have to be super careful to not be the smartest person in the room and like consciously be like, okay, yeah, I know a lot of stuff that's happening, but there's got to be a nugget here for me. And you've been so great for us. When are you coming to visit again, by the way?
I will have to figure it out. I think I'm going to be out your way next fall. I don't know the dates, but I'll look at my calendar. I'll get it out to you. I always enjoy my visit to Action Karate.
Yeah, I think it's only been once or twice this year. I
Yeah,
guess once maybe.
yeah,
We still
yeah.
have at least one to go.
Yep. All right. Very good, man. All right. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks for being on the show, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir.
Are you a martial arts instructor looking to improve your teaching skills and build a strong team of future instructors? Well, look no further than the Satori Alliance, an international association of martial arts instructors. Our mission is to positively impact the global martial arts community by establishing a shared level of martial arts instruction, professionalism, and continuous learning. With our instructor certification program, you'll gain the confidence, communication skills, and classroom management techniques to run a professional and well-run martial arts floor of any age group. We invite you to schedule a free consultation with one of our program directors who can evaluate your instructor team's size, schedule, and training content. We'll outline the Satori Alliance master steps that have helped build and maintain strong teams of instructors. To learn more about the Satori Alliance and schedule your free consultation, please visit our website at www.thesatorialliance.com/podcast. That's SATORIALLIANCE.com/podcast. Join our community of passionate martial arts instructors today.
Thank you for tuning in today to our podcast. I hope you found it valuable and inspirational. To stay connected, please subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's show, please give us a 5-star review. And we really sincerely would appreciate some feedback. Your feedback helps us to create high-quality content that will help others in the future. If you'd like to follow me, you can go to Dave Kovar on Facebook or Haunchy Dave Kovar on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on next episode.